The ISIS graphic novel Indiegogo is live. Help me publish the first comic book featuring the goddess next door by putting in a pledge today. Recently, your Oprah Winfrey threw her support behind a so-called documentary called Leaving Neverland. And with her throwing her support behind this Leaving Neverland and then hosting the events as related to this Leaving Neverland and then calling for abuse victims of Michael Jackson to come out, your Oprah Winfrey has shown herself to be the traitor to the black race. Many have alleged her to be over the last 35, 40 years, and she has shown that she is now officially has pledged her allegiance to white supremacy and not black America. Now, this Leaving Neverland documentary, as I see it, is clearly one of these hit pieces disguised as a documentary designed to malign the image and reputation of Michael Jackson and by proxy to demonize the image of black men in the same way that hit piece calling itself a documentary Surviving R. Kelly was designed to malign the image of your R. Kelly and then by proxy demonize the image of black men. And all of these so-called documentaries, these are nothing more than propaganda pieces designed by a small group of white supremacists to demonize and malign the image of black men so that in contrast to the image of white men like your Harvey Weinstein, like your Woody Allen, like your Stephen Collins, and your Roman Polanski will look like brutes in comparison, and most people will then look at the image of those black men, see them as brutes, and then not pay any attention to the perverted and sexually deviant behavior of these white men and the history of sexually deviant behavior that these white men have participated in. Because it seems like almost every time one of these white men, such as your Kevin Spacey or your Harvey Weinstein, or one of these other white men wind up having to deal with the criminal justice system and the crimes that they have participated in as related to their sexual deviancy, then we get one of these propaganda hit pieces designed to malign the image of a black man. Now, I see this attack on Michael Jackson as extremely cowardly because when it comes down to Michael Jackson, he is not alive to defend himself. So to create this hit piece, as I see it, to go attack the image of a man who is deceased and cannot defend himself, that shows you how truly cowardly these white supremacists are, because they do not have the courage to confront your Michael Jackson with these allegations now. And the reason why they don't have the courage is because they knew that Michael Jackson, when he was alive, had the economic resources to combat these white supremacists, and he had the resources to hire lawyers and private investigators to create a case and a strong argument for him. Because your Michael Jackson had to deal with these allegations back in the 1990s, and there was an FBI investigation into Mr. Jackson. Agents came into his home. They found nothing. The Los Angeles County prosecutor went and tried Michael Jackson for these crimes, and your Michael Jackson was acquitted for these crimes. So if a court of law and our Federal Bureau of Investigation have clearly found no evidence of any sort of sexual abuse or sexual molestation, then the matter should be settled. But when it comes down to white supremacy, it does not follow the laws of our United States Constitution. White supremacists, they have their own set of laws, and what they want to do is They want to take your Michael Jackson and your R. Kelly and your Bill Cosby, and they want to present them as images of demons that society needs to go after. And while people are on a witch hunt, or as I call it, a wild goose chase, chasing after these black men, many of these perverted, sexually deviant white men are allowed to continue operating with impunity. And this is the plan that your white supremacists have. And what they want to do is they go out here and they use our own black women to continue perpetuating this wild goose chase. Because if we look at all of the women going after your Bill Cosby, your R. Kelly, your Michael Jackson, these Negro bed wenches are showing their allegiance to white supremacy and how they are agents of white supremacy. Because when I look at your women like your Tanara Burke, the founder of the Me Too movement, your Kim Foxx, the Chicago prosecutor filing charges against your R. Kelly, and the black female who went out here and campaigned to destroy Bill Cosby alongside Kevin Steele, and your Oprah Winfrey, I clearly see what your David Carroll was talking about when he said that black women are the enemy of black men. And I'm not saying all black women, I'm saying these Negro bed wenches are the enemy of black people, and they are the enemy of black men. Now, your Oprah Winfrey clearly has been an enemy of black people, and I've saw that way over the years watching her Oprah Winfrey show growing up, where she made an entire platform and built all of her wealth on the complete maligning of black men. Because on every episode of her show, she had an image of a black man as a cheater, a no-good man, a deadbeat dad, and she made every effort to promote the misandry of black men, and she made every effort to perpetuate the negative image of black men. And as she gained her money, she then went out here and produced feminist propaganda like The Women of Brewster Place. And after I taped that on VHS back in '89, and then watching it 20 years later, I began to see all of the misandry in that film. And that film, no black man was seen as responsible, competent, or even in a leadership position. And that was all Oprah Winfrey's narrative regarding black men. And if you watch any of her Oprah Winfrey Presents movies, you will see the same narrative in her adaptations of movies like The Wedding, which featured Halle Berry, and how it was all about her marrying this white man. And you can see it in other films she has done, like Their Eyes Are Watching God, where that she goes out of her way to, again, attack black men, black manhood, and black masculinity. And that trend of her and her pattern of behavior, that goes on in this supporting this Leaving Neverland. Now, this woman, what makes her a completely disgusting human being, as I see it, is that back in 1993, she sat there and stood with Michael Jackson, supported Michael Jackson, and then to do this to this man after he dies, this is what really disgusts me about your Oprah Winfrey. She's going to sit there and talk about how she's looking to find out who was abused by your Michael Jackson and support this hit piece propaganda calling itself a documentary. And again, that shows me that your Oprah Winfrey, again, was never on the side of black people. She is a traitor to the race of black people, and she is nothing more than a mammy who is sitting there standing at the side of the white supremacists who she deifies and worships like the God she thinks they are. Because that's what Oprah Winfrey believes white people to be. That's why these mammies, like, again, your Tanara Burke, your Kim Foxx, and that prosecutor went after Bill Cosby, and your Oprah Winfrey and your Gayle King, that's why they are all supporters of white supremacy, because they deify and worship white men. Because they'll sit there and talk about how we need to go after your Michael Jacksons and your R. Kellys, but if these women were not so caught up in white supremacy, they would be wanting to stop all sexual assaults, sexual harassment, and sexual abuse. And they would be going after white men like your Harvey Weinstein, like your Woody Allen, like your Stephen Collins, like your Rob Lowe, and many others. And they would be going after those white men, and they would be going after white institutions like your Catholic Church, which has been shown to be filled with perverts and sexual deviants. But it's clear to me that when it comes down to Oprah Winfrey, she clearly has a bias for white supremacists, and this Aunt Jemima would rather go out here and demonize a black man who was proven again innocent in a court of state law and an FBI investigation. And if an FBI investigation was good enough to clear your Brett Kavanaugh, who is now a Supreme Court Justice, today, then it should be perfectly good for your Michael Jackson. But when it comes down to your white supremacists, they want to have double standards, triple standards, and they want the black man to be the bad guy. They want the black guy to be the boogeyman. And when it comes down to the black man, they want everybody going out here to attack the black man and not look at these white men who clearly are now being revealed, all because of their silly efforts to try to destroy the reputations of black men. Because when it comes down to a lot of these white men, they're all out to destroy the reputations of men like Bill Cosby and many other prominent black men, not understanding that the females who they are kicking the hypergamy into, their female nature always makes them go right back after white men, because white men are the ones who provided those black men with resources, and it was white men who enabled them to have the wealth that they have. Because most of these black entertainers, like your Michael Jackson, like your R. Kelly, they did not get most of their money from their own companies. They didn't have black-owned businesses. The Jackson family with Motown, they did early on, but most of the wealth Michael Jackson gained was through purchasing things like Sony and working with white corporations. So this attempt to try to destroy black men is only going to backfire in the big picture, and it continues to backfire. But these white supremacists, as silly as they are, continue trying to destroy the image of black men and reputation of black men, not seeing how it just keeps boomeranging back to them. And it also shows how hypocritical they are, because they're sitting there talking about how guys like your R. Kelly are sexual deviants and trying to demonize guys like your R. Kelly. However, no one wants to talk about your Jerry Lee Lewis. Nobody wants to talk about your Rob Lowe, who was in a sex tape many years ago and now has his own game show, Mental Samurai, about to come on. And no one wants to talk about your Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. So they want to make this Leaving Neverland hit piece propaganda to demonize Michael Jackson. Meanwhile, no one wants to say anything about your Elvis Presley, a known racist, a known white supremacist, and a known pedophile, because he was out here with Priscilla Presley when she was underage and had numerous sexual relations with your Priscilla Presley when she was underage. But your Oprah Winfrey, she's going to get behind Leaving Neverland and slap the entire black community in the face. And this is where I believe the black community needs to strike back at your Oprah Winfrey, because as she's now shown us that she is a sellout on the same level of your Kamala Harris and many other bedwenching, buck-dancing Negroes, we need to put the hammer on your Oprah Winfrey and let her know where most of her original support came from. Because it's clear to me that this bedwench and this mammy, she wants to stab the black community in the back. She has a deep hatred for black men, and it's time for black men to stand up to your Oprah Winfrey and stand up for their community, because when it comes down to these crazy feminists and these white supremacists, they want to try to make us be the bad guy, when in actuality we're not the villain of the situation, and they are. And as the villain of the situation, what they're upset about is all the stuff they did in the dark coming to light, and then they want to deflect by putting it on a black man and making him the bad guy, when in actuality he's the greatest villain in the room. I'm hosting an Indiegogo to publish my first graphic novel, and I would really appreciate your support. If you would click the link in the description box and help me get this project funded, I would really appreciate it. And if you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct publications, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.